am sorry I can't be with you today, but I wanted to take a minute to talk a little bit about our identifying our structure for what resources we're going to have and how we're going to sort of package them for use. So a couple things that I wanted to bring up. The Numeracy Essential site has its own structure, right? And you all may decide like this site is perfect and it's exactly what we need, and we just want to add on to it and sort of revise the contents there to reflect the course content that we've identified. So I do want you to consider the layout of the Numeracy Essentials as an option for course structure, or for structure of the materials. If there are some things that when you're looking at this, you think, oh, well, we could make this more teacher friendly, then we should definitely revise. And that's what I want to pose today, is considering the most teacher-friendly structure for these resources. Sorry if I'm kind of rambling. There's a lot I want to get in this video. The reason why I want us to focus so much on structure is because we have to think about the end user. And you all know after teaching this course that you need to be very flexible in the resources that you're using and how you access them, because you might have students who are at different places even within one topic. So considering how teachers are going to access that information and then plan with it is really important. The other thing that makes the structure important is the content readiness of our teachers. We have teachers coming to us from various backgrounds, some who are going to have a lot of content knowledge around math instruction at this stage and some who may not. So we want to make something that's user friendly, and we might need to consider the amount of text that we're asking teachers to read in a short, in a compact school day. There's not always the time to dive as deeply into this content as we would like to, or they would like to. So I just want you to consider all those factors when you're thinking about structure. Okay, so here's the Numeracy Essential site, which you can see that they've got it broken out by topic, and then under each topic has some considerations for teaching and really sort of the methods part of things, and then it links to the learning progressions. And in the learning progressions, there's more considerations for thinking, more about methods and pedagogy, in addition to activities that you can do. I will say you might need to consider, do teachers get to the content fast enough when they're clicking through this? And that might be something that we want to explore, is making sure that they can get to these actual examples faster. So that's sort of the layout right now. 3 or 4 clicks to get to the content that you need. There are wonderful, wonderful lessons in here. But it is kind of a potpourri too. It's like a menu. It's like, here's some options for you, and then a lot of the planning is left to the teacher, which I think is fantastic and provides teachers with a lot of autonomy. Again, though, are we considering the type of teacher we have, and is that going to meet their needs? And you all answer that question, not me. So that's one, that's kind of like reviewing what we have in existence. I wanted to share with you some work that I did with a team in Jefferson County Public Schools in Louisville, Kentucky. It was like 7 or 10 years ago now, but feeling a little old. But we had a situation where we were trying to roll out mathematics intervention, and we knew that our teachers didn't always have, number one, the time to plan really effective lessons, or number two, the background and the chops, right? Like the methods chops to be able to teach the way we wanted them to. So we made some allowances for that in the structure that we set up. And the system that we developed was called, we had a system of what we called strategy mats. So it sort of started with assessment, And we used an assessment called NWEA's MAP assessment. And the MAP assessment spits out a score, kind of like iReady, and just like what we'll get from Math Inventory. And the scores are represented in ranges. And you can see on this sheet, this was an alignment of MAP RIT scores, the supporting content under that score range, and how it aligned to instructional resources that we provided. So the way this project worked was we first started off identifying the essential content. So similar to what we did and what you guys finished up today. What's our essential content? And this was our essential content. So this is kindergarten counting strategy mat. You can see that this counting strategy mat, this topic, had several different standards that supported it. And you can see we went all the way to, it was only 5 years ago. I don't feel as old now. 6 years ago. Let's see, down here, we went up through 7th grade, I think. Yeah, because we decided, like at 8th grade, that was really the algebra that we wanted them doing. So you can see like multiply and divide integers. So what this did was all students in the division in the district took the test, and then we said, okay, here's the score. Let's identify some content that we think students would need based on their scores. And all the stuff that's in light green represents the aligned topics from the test, and then the part in dark green represents the actual content, the resources that we provided teachers. We also had another layer of diagnostics, which I can share with you at a later date, where we could say, all right, your student, they scored a 198, but we still want to narrow down what standards they should focus on without just relying on this one score. And so those diagnostics were done, they were interview style, and they were designed to really, like I said, narrow the focus. But largely, this was the main content. But in terms of structure, what I want to share with you is how we organize the content. You can see we have topics, like I said before, and just because we had a strategy mat or topic did not equal one standard. Instead, it might equal a cluster of standards, which is one thing that I was thinking about in our work that we did in late January. It kind of came up that sometimes we would talk about a content strand, and there might be some there might be multiple stages within that strand or topic that students were struggling with. And so, when you're in your classroom, you might actually be pulling a group that's working on place value, but they might have varying needs. So perhaps a structure like this would help that. All right, so what we did was let me go back here so you can see what this looks like. We created these folders. See, these are all the strategy mats. And in each folder was a collection of resources, which included instructional resources and assessments. And the whole idea was like a little mini packaged unit. And see right here, 1G and 2G, these were fraction concepts. Obviously, two different standards from two different grade levels. But what you would do, and my links don't work as well now as they did. This is not the one I want to show you. Okay, 2 MBT1, place value. What we did was we created a landing page, which could be something that we put on the internet. Maybe that's on the Numeracy Essentials site or the Math Essentials site. And this landing page was called the Strategy Mat. And the Strategy Mat collected all of those resources in one place for that topic. So here in the center, it was like number base 10, place value, and then here was the associated standard. If there were more than one standard, obviously we'd write the other standards. And then what we did was we designed a progression of activities moving students through CSA, or otherwise known as CRA, concrete, semi-concrete, and abstract, which is a research-based, proven method of moving students through instructional content. And so when people say, oh, like, is your intervention research-based? Like, yes, this is a research-proven method of instructing for students who are having difficulty. Now, that may or may not apply to all of our students, our English language learners, right? Because not all of them are having trouble learning the math. Sometimes it's an English barrier. So we might want to consider a different progression or a different structure, and maybe it's something where it's like, you know, there's still some sort of progression of content, but then one of the boxes is like strategies for translation, and you guys know the language better than I do, but strategies for translation versus math content knowledge. But this just kind of helped us to organize all of the materials. So you can see that strategies here at the concrete stage were literally just like little teaching activities. You know, students will choose a 3-digit number and place value pieces, and they'll build that number using the fewest pieces while the teacher's talking to them and probing and asking questions. The resource that we have there is the place value mat. If you click on this link, it would go to that. Strategy 2 is very similar, but now it's with a 3-digit number. And let's see what's different about this. And this time they're doing it as many ways possible. So this was the fewest possible pieces. Now it's as many ways possible. So that in theory, the teacher would start students with these concrete strategies. And then if students were getting those concrete strategies very quickly, then we just advance them to semi-concrete. If we were unsure, if we were ready to advance, they could click here and do a progress monitoring probe to test their ability. And the probes were all aligned to whatever stage you were at. So concrete probes were very concrete. They used manipulatives. They had students, you know, touching and walking and, you know, doing something very physical with their body. Semi-concrete was all pictorial representations. And then abstract was like, now we're just working with our numbers, just our symbolic notation. So you can see there's lots of links in here to the resources, to the supporting resources, and then those would in theory link to all of these things that are in here. So like I mentioned, progress monitoring, the first one was for concrete. Let's take a look at what that looks like. Here's your resources that you have. Use the place value mat. Ask students to show the number 147. Ask how many hundreds, how many tens, how many ones. Were they successful or unsuccessful? It's very reasonable that they should get perfect score on this. And if they're not getting a perfect score, then it's a judgment call on the teacher to decide if they're ready to move on to the semi-concrete stage. But at least gives teachers a little bit more, like a few more benchmarks in between to sort of gauge success. So I wanted to offer this as an option. I don't know that this structure is what we need, but I wanted to offer another structure so that you could think through how might we organize this content so that's really, really teacher friendly, and maybe even a little bit more explicit in what teachers would need to do. And perhaps they don't need it. And if they don't, we don't need to go down this route. But I do think, in my experience, teaching like this can be very overwhelming. So knowing that I have these sort of packaged clusters of content with the lessons at least somewhat laid out. I mean, I still need to consider who's going to be in my small group and how I'm going to execute that lesson. I might need to still, consider a launch, engaging them in the activity. Also, I need to consider, some sort of like closing and what did we learn? Let's summarize our learning from today. But at least the activities are sequenced a little bit for me to get started. All right. I wish I could be there doing this work with you all today, and I hope that this has been helpful to consider structures. So I want to leave you with the rest of the time to just sort of brainstorm as a team and design maybe a structure that you think might work. Or you may decide, nope, we like what we have, and that would be totally fine too. So just know I'm thinking about you, and I'm doing this video before I'm on leave, but at this point I probably, while you're actually there, have a little baby girl in my arms, and I'm enjoying that, but wish I could be there with you guys too. Look forward to seeing you when I come back. Thank you so much.